Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Toby Eunice with the Gypsy Kiss. Thanks for joining us tonight. Stick with us a couple of seconds and we'll introduce you to Mr. Michael Hull from Tokyo, Japan. We've got a great show planned for you tonight. We're going to introduce you to another searcher in the community who travels a great deal. And I just discovered, I've introduced him several times from Tokyo, Japan, but I just found out today that he's actually here in the U.S., and we'll talk a little bit about that. Our panelists tonight include Jason Dent, Cynthia Meacham, Rodney Greenway, and my partner and producer for tonight, Shelley Carney. I'm going to have them introduce each one of themselves in just a second. I do want you to know that we have a giveaway tonight. This is a laser cut print from one of my daughter's pieces of art. This is San Isidro, and he's the patron saint of farmers. So if you have a friend, relative, or business associate who happens to be a farmer, they might like this hanging on their wall. Okay, so let's start with Jason. Jason, not that any of these people are already not known, but Jason, would you mind introducing yourself and tell folks where they can find you online?
Jason Dent. You can find me on Fenn Treasure Hunter on YouTube, or email me at the same at Gmail.
Thank you. Cynthia?
My name is Cynthia Meacham. I do not have a YouTube channel, but I have a blog, and it is at chasingfennstreasure.com. All one word, no apostrophe.
And real quickly, have you had some blog updates based on your trips back to Montana?
Not since
you got back.
No.
Okay.
Nothing worthwhile.
All right. And Rodney?
How's it going? Rodney Greenway. My YouTube channel is Rodney Greenway, just like my name. And then my email is fenntreasurethoughts@gmail.com.
Thanks. And last but not least, my partner in crime, Shelley.
I'm Shelley Carney with A Gypsy Kiss, and I have my own channel, Shelley Carney Productions, featuring The Softer Side. And I just put that link into the chat. It's thesofterside.me. Toby and I will be live tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock, and I hope you will join us.
Join us then. And finally, I'd like to introduce our guest for tonight. I know Michael not only as a searcher, but the last time he was in the U.S., he happened to be passing through Albuquerque and invited me to meet him for coffee. So we did at the Starbucks. I remember I had a VA appointment that day, and so we met at the Starbucks near the Veterans Hospital here in Albuquerque. And we shared stories and search ideas, and it was then that I found out that Michael travels all the way from Tokyo, and I'll ask him to tell you more about that. But he's done it more than once, and it was the invitation to him to come and join us tonight, as well as the fact that he makes these long distance trips in order to do that. And when I told Jason about the topic, his first reaction was, "Yeah, I've done that flight," because if I remember correctly, Jason was in Korea for more than one tour, right? And so these are all things that we've probably all done, but I want to talk about that just a little bit, about what it means to the individual, what it means to your families, what it means to your concept of the search, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll talk about that. So Michael, before we go any further, would you take a few minutes to introduce yourself to the community, tell us about yourself and kind of where you are in the search?
Okay, so well, I post comments on A Gypsy Kiss, and in other places it's MEH.
Right.
That's basically, so you may have seen some of the my comment.
Oops. I'm afraid that hotel is not going to hold up under the strain. No. So, Michael, I'm going to interrupt you because we're getting nothing, actually. You're kind of locked up, and it's probably because I know you're in a hotel, and it's not able to tolerate the pressure.
Yeah.
So, let's see. Let's try it again. So let's try it again. We're not getting anything that you're saying, Michael, because every time you start talking, the your system locks up. So what's the other way to do this? There is no other way to do this because you're in a hotel, right?
Hey, he could probably try to call a phone and put it on speaker. You won't see him, but you'll hear him.
Michael, are you using your computer to and the wireless in the hotel?
I'm and using wireless.
Who did lose?
My phone. My phone.
Yeah, we're not getting.
If he closes out his video, the video button, if he shuts that down, audio will probably stay.
Yeah, let's try that, Michael. Close down your video, shut down the video, and stay with audio. See if that helps. Actually, I might be able to control that. Hang on.
The Grand Canyon, south side.
Okay, hold on. Let me see. I'm gonna stop your video and let's see if we can just use your audio. I apologize for that, but let's try it. Okay. So, let's try that. Michael, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
That's gonna be close.
All right, let's try that. So, Michael, let's start at the beginning. Give us a little bit of background on your history as a searcher, and tell us where you are in the search.
Okay, so I first heard about the Forrest Fenn treasure hunt about a year ago.
Nope. All right. So
almost exactly the end of June.
Michael. So we're getting literally about 1/10 of what you're saying. So I'm going to. All right, I'm going to do something that I don't like doing as a moderator, but I am going to.
If he wants to provide his number,
the attention that had been given to totally.
Okay, all right. So
Hello.
I had to do something I didn't like doing, and that was effectively mute Michael. So we're just going to go on with our program tonight, and I will make apologies for Michael, and I will figure out how we can get to introduce him. So. One of the reasons I had invited Michael to join us tonight was because he travels and has traveled from Tokyo all the way to the U.S. To search. And I think his primary, I'm not going to give you his fundamental search area, but he comes to New Mexico. And as of the last time he and I spoke with one another, he had been here 5 times. I also know that Michael lives in Tokyo and that his wife, who is also a university instructor, teaches in Singapore. So they basically commute back and forth with one another. So he knows what it's like for those long distance travels to get here. We're fortunate, Shelley and I are fortunate in the sense that we live in New Mexico and we search in New Mexico. So our drive on a bad day is 3.5 hours. I know that, for example, Jason has searched in New Mexico, but he comes up from El Paso. So on a bad day, his drive is 6 hours. Cynthia was searching in New Mexico. Now she's traveling up to Yellowstone to do that. So the question I want to deal with tonight is at what point do you start, and Jason had kind of an instantaneous answer to this just a few minutes ago. At what point do you start looking at yourself and you say to yourself, I can't afford the time, I can't afford the money, I can't afford the effort it takes to look for this treasure as it is described being someplace in the 4 Rocky Mountain states. So, Rodney, I'm going to start with you because I think you're actually the furthest away from us. At what point? Where do you say enough?
Well, I'd like to say I'm not at that point already, but no, my drive was about 30 hours, factoring in, and that's pushing straight through. It's supposed to be a 25-hour drive, and then after you factor in, gas and eating food and everything, it took me 30 hours to get to Butte, Montana, from where I'm at right now. So my opinion would be, once it starts interfering with you being able to be, rational and logical about it, if it gets to the point where, you're cutting into your family's money, or, that the finances just aren't there, or it simply becomes an obsession that's like more than normal. That's probably when I would say to stop. And I think I'm obsessed, but it's pretty obvious, that some searchers have gone over the deep end, with their searching. So personally, that's probably when I would say. Now, do you know if you're at that point or not yourself? I don't know. Maybe you might need some intervention, but yeah, that's my opinion about it.
So, Jason, you're in the military, so you, by nature, and you've been in for almost 20 years. You've done a lot of traveling. We know that you've made that trip from Korea back home, back and forth several times. When I asked this question before we started, you said until the treasure is found. But if we look at it from a rational perspective, and I don't know your guys' marital status. Rodney, what's your marital status, if you don't mind me asking?
I am married. My anniversary is this week.
And children?
I have 2 kids.
Okay.
Yep.
And Jason, I don't know, and I'm only asking because I think that has an impact.
Yeah, I'm totally not married and no children, so I can go search whenever I want. So.
And
Korea,
so
Korea.
how far? How many times? At what point are you just going to say enough is enough?
As far as searching for Finn's treasure,
yeah.
I guess I should. I spend probably $200 when I go boots on the ground, just in gas. And I mentioned before that I stay in the tent in the back of the truck, and normally I prep the meals prior to leaving, so I really don't spend that much when I go out. I try to keep it economical for the reasons that, I don't want to overextend myself, or, I think the biggest wear and tear is on the vehicle. So, you got to take that maintenance considerations into play as part of one of your finances as well. So, I don't want to, I don't stay in the hotels and all that stuff just because, I don't want to take out from that maintenance budget on the vehicle. So that $200 mark works really well for me. Affords me to go out, a couple times a month if I want to. So.
And Cynthia, you've been at this for what, 4, 5, 6 years? You spent a lot of time searching in New Mexico. I knew that. And then you made the decision to move out of New Mexico and into the northern states, the Yellowstone, which could include Wyoming and Montana, etc. And I know you've searched outside Yellowstone, which includes Wyoming and Montana. And I think you have the benefit, of course, being retired, but you do have a partner and a dog. And so at what point does it become, I just can't do this anymore, for whether it's financial or time or effort, or just there's other things I want to do with my life?
For me, never. I'm going to the end. I am very lucky because I am retired. I do not have kids at home, which would make a huge difference. I think if even if you just had a wife, it might be a lot easier. But boy, if you have kids at home, that would really be tough to go just on a whim or very often, I would think. And I am fortunate that I do live. So even though I go up to Yellowstone now, or that area, it's like just a tad over 900 miles. I can actually drive it straight through in about 14 hours. And there again, and as we discussed before, I camp. I just have a little pop-up camper I tow. That really helps with my costs. And there again, I agree with Jason. A lot of my food, it's, you know, I'm eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that I prepare ahead of time, and I have my cooler in the truck so that when I go out, I don't eat out often. If I can avoid it, I'd rather just make my own stuff or microwave something later.
So, so I like Cynthia, I'm retired. Jason, all my kids. Well, I don't have kids, not because I don't have kids, but because they're all grown and on their own. So I think the one that I'm completely different from is Rodney, because he's young, married, and has children. So my position on the matter, kind of like Cynthia, I don't see a reason to stop. This is, for all intents and purposes, as Shelley and I were talking about this yesterday, this is at the point where, for all intents and purposes, it's my retirement hobby, right? I gave up all my other hobbies, if you will, and just kind of focused on this. And the advantage is we have the benefit of not only focusing on the search, but there's a byproduct of that, and that is maintaining our channel and doing all the stuff that helps us with research and posting the videos and having these events like this. So I'm not ready to call it quits, but then I have to ask this question in a different way. And the question is, what's excluding somebody announcing finding the treasure, right? Which would, I suppose we would all say, well, that's it. Got to go back to my old hobbies or find a new one. Excluding somebody finding the treasure, what's the one thing, and I'll start with you, Rodney, what's the one thing that would have to come up in order for you to say, okay, that's it? The one thing.
I would say any sort of ultimatums from my family. I guess that's probably when I would put a stop to it, because it is an everyday thing. You know, whether it's reading the book or looking over maps. And, you know, my wife's been very tolerable about it. Who knows how long she's going to continue to be that way. But either that or, you know, if, you know, I just kind of lose interest, which I don't think is going to happen, or just the money and the time just isn't there anymore. You know, this could be a phase that I grow out of in a year. I highly doubt it, but I'm also realistic that that could be a reality, you know.
So before I go on to you, Jason asked the same question. For those of you in the chat room, do me a favor and just tell me or write in the chat room what obstacle, what thing would have to happen for you to say, exclusive of somebody finding the treasure, what one thing in your life would have to happen for you to say, all right, I'm not putting any more time into this? Just give me a sense of what it is, and Shelley can share those with us in just a minute. So Jason, your microphone is muted. I'm going to unmute. I can't. There you go. So Jason, what's the one thing in your life that could happen, short of, you know, something dramatically terrible, but what's the one thing that could happen that you'd say to yourself, okay, I've got to move on with my life?
I mean, temporarily a military deployment. Other than that, you know, I think it's always going to be there. You know, I'm always going to do the research for it and search for it. So I don't think that necessarily it's going to be something that I just stop and just say, well, forget it. So I'm going to keep searching until the treasure's found.
All right. Well, let's go. Cynthia, are you like Jason, or have you got some thoughts about what it would take?
Oh, I have a couple thoughts. For one thing, a DUI. And you guys are a bad influence on me. No more of that. Anyway, Michelle already told me if I get a DUI and lose my driver's license, she absolutely will not drive you to a safe spot.
Nice.
So no more drinking and driving, you guys. And the other thing, health issues, of course. So, you know, if something happens that I would lose my ability to walk, that would certainly change it. And the other thing that is, I think, will be very interesting if this continues to go on over a number of years. What will we do when Forrest Fenn passes away?
Right.
And no longer interrelates with the searchers, whether it's just an occasional scrapbook story or just like Jason had a great opportunity to get to see Fenn and then actually put it on his YouTube, which was great for all of us to hear. You know, that was wonderful, Jason. Yeah. So anyway, I don't think regarding myself, and you know, if Fenn passes away, then what will I do? I don't really know that. I do think it will be influential, but well, let's hope that doesn't come around for a long time. Let's hope someone finds a treasure while Fenn is still living.
That would be nice. So I'm let me talk a little bit about my position on the matter. Recently, I've got a bad knee that goes back to my service time, but recently I strained it, and I was surprised. The last recon we made, it was still strained, and I went anyway, and it made everything like 3 times as hard. It made me slower. I had to put more effort into it, et cetera, and it's taken me longer to heal. And I think it's taking me longer to heal this time because I'm not 49, I'm 69. And so I think there's a point at which the age is the big limitation. I foresee that someday what's going to stop me is just the fact that I can't do these things anymore for whatever reason. I don't feel like it's going to come anytime soon. And I always have the fact that, you know, Fenn claims that he hid the treasure when he was 80. So I'd like to be able to get to those same locations when I'm 80. But I was really kind of surprised at how much time and effort I've had to put into healing in order just to walk normally, you know. So, all right, let's try this one more time. Michael, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, that's weird, really weird. Okay, well, let's try this now that you're back. Let's take a little bit of a break and go back to Michael for just a minute. We've had a really interesting conversation while you were gone, but so let's go back and tell us about where you are in the search and talk about traveling from Tokyo, et cetera, et cetera. Let's see if we can get through with that.
Well, I'm afraid to start talking because I don't know what's going to happen if I do.
Well,
where I am in the search, the concise version now is I have been to New Mexico 4 times, 4 trips, about 20 days, all at the same spot. And my criterion for continuing with the search is that if I go on a trip and I do not progress any further at my one spot, I will stop. And each time that I've been, for each of the 4 times, the progress has been positive, but diminishing, and the area in which I'm interested has been tightening to the point now where I'm now back in the States on a trip where I may or may not be able to go to my spot. And if I do, there's not much further for it to contract. And so I have a feeling that my next time will be my last, simply because I have no goal. I am here because actionable evidence. And I simply I have not heard in anything else that I've seen online or heard online, anything that matches the consistency of what I have so far. So I'm following up one thing and one thing alone, and that determines what I do or do not do.
So one of the questions that I asked the panel while you were away from the Zoom room was, and it sounds like you may have gotten, or at least made a decision about what that point is. What's the point at which you say, A, I haven't recovered this treasure, and B, I'm not going to put any more time, money, or effort into it?
It's sort of like say how I'm processing the information in the book itself. I'm not a poem purist. I believe that the poem is a skeleton designed to bring us to an area to find the actual treasure chest location. And I believe that it is possible to find the treasure with, but realistically speaking, the effort involved to actually verify everything in your location is prohibitive for somebody who lives as far away as me. So I'm actually quite dependent on hints in the book that I've attempted.
All right, we're having the same problem again. So I'm going to try stopping the video, see if we can just go with the audio.
And I measure my...
Nope. All right, we're just not making headway, Michael.
It's clear as the bell.
Yeah, I'm sure we are, but your conversation is just... I tried just using the audio only, and it's just not coming through.
I think he would have to shut it down on his end. If he turns off the camera on his phone or computer or whatever and only uses audio, I feel like that would make a difference.
Michael, if you can hear that, try that. Let's see if we can just lose the audio and get the video. So go ahead and try.
Okay.
How is that? Michael? Nope.
No. Lose the video. Stay with audio.
If you, hello.
All right.
I will try, how to video.
All right. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do what I really don't like doing. I don't have any option, but so we're just going to have to continue on with the program. The last thing I kind of feel like we left off with was Cynthia mentioning the possibility or the point at which Fenn's death is going to change the state of the search. I think I tend to agree with you on that matter. I'm not sure how it's going to change it, but I think it'll have an impact on searchers who say, kind of like, maybe that's the point. So Jason Dent, and I guess I don't have to say Jason Dent because Jason Eunice isn't here, but Jason Dent, how is Fenn's passing, in your opinion, going to change the state of the search generically or globally, and then how's it going to change for you?
There might be an uptick when that initially happens, or an
uptick in interest, you mean?
An uptick in interest, and a lot of people might rush out to their spots, but then I think it will sharply decline after his passing, just because there's nobody that they can reach out to get more information. For me, I hope everybody just forgets about it and lets me search without anybody else interfering. So.
Cynthia, let's go back to you because you brought up the topic initially. How is the search going to change with Fenn's passing? And first of all, how's it going to change? How do you think it'll change the community? And how's it going to affect you?
Well, it will affect me like many other searchers. I mean, it will be a very sad day. I think in general, though, I think it will create chaos, at least to start with, because already how many people, well, I don't think there's been a whole lot of times this season yet where people have said they found it. One not too long ago, I recall, and every year there are people who claim they've found the chest, and then Fenn, he makes a public announcement where he says, no, they did not. So I think that'll be the worst thing of all, is that people will claim that they found it, and then there's no one to say they didn't.
Right, no monitoring.
So I think that's going to make it more difficult, but I think as searchers, we will have to decide whether or not we're still going to go ahead with it or not. And there again, I hope that if someone finds it after Forrest has passed away, that they still let someone know, whether it's you, Toby, or Dale, or someone that can get it out, to the media, to everybody. But regarding the hoaxes of people claiming it, I'm not sure how we're going to wade through that. But for myself, I still plan to continue to search.
Rodney, so Fenn's passing, which doesn't look probable right now. He looks as healthy as a horse to me, but it's possible. What impact do you think it'll have on the community, the search community, and what impact will it have on you personally?
Just like everybody else has said, I think it's a lot of us will be extremely upset when it happens. Hopefully we would be able to have the honors of attending, a service for him or whatever. But moving on to what I think is going to happen, I think there's going to be a lot of confusion. I hear a lot of people talking, and they think that, title to the gold means that you're announcing to Fenn that you found his chest. So what happens when Fenn is no longer here? That obviously there's going to be a process for you to be able to claim it. Now, when, just like Forrest says that, his gut feeling is wavering, okay, we don't know what that means. And then say Forrest dies, and what's going to be the process to confirm something like that? And once Forrest does pass away, if somebody does find the treasure and announce it, are we going to have a way to know? I think right now, if it's found, Forrest would be that person that would tell us, it's been found. So, I think there would be a lot of panic and a lot of confusion, but I also think that a lot of people would get interested in it, just like Jason's saying.
So, Jason, let's say that Forrest does pass away, and and let's say you find the treasure. Tell us about, Forrest has often said, I've done all the research, and I can't remember the exact words. I'm sure Cynthia will remember. I've done everything, I put everything in place, so it's going to make it easy for the finder of the treasure to take ownership, to be granted title to the treasure. So let's say he passes away. Let's say further you find the treasure. What is your expectation of not what you're going to do with the treasure, but what is your expectation of what you're going to have to do in order to claim title to the treasure? Rodney brought up a couple of points that sound very legalese to me. The question I have is does it sound like the legal side to you as well, or are we over examining this?
I've thought about that question on numerous occasions because people bring that up all the time. What happens when you find the chest? I don't think that I think it's as simple as taking the chest home. And of course, there might be a set of instructions in there, but I don't think that, I'm going to get some magic thing in there that I get in contact with Forrest Fenn or one of the
a lawyer representing
trustees or lawyer representees. I just think that, I'm going to take the chest and then I'm going to have to deal with it, whether it's IRS or however that plays out. Those are problems that I really haven't thought a whole lot about, but when that time comes, I will be excited to think about all those things. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that it's as legal as everybody else is trying to make it.
Well, there might be some issues associated with tax law, et cetera, et cetera. It is your sense that there's no issues associated with property ownership, things like that. No
property ownership issues, but the tax issue will not go away.
No. That's got to be taken care of. So, Cynthia, I'm going to ask you the same question in just a moment, but I know Shelley has a question from the room. Shelley, what do you got?
Well, did you want to hear what everybody said would stop them, or do you just want to hear questions?
Give me a couple of samples of what people said that would stop them.
All right. Well, a couple of them said money.
Yeah.
Let's see. If somebody finds it, then other than that, they're going to keep going. The wife telling them to stop it would be a stop. Somebody said if their car breaks down and goes belly up, they can't go anymore. Let's see, an alien invasion.
Alien invasions would be tough. Yeah.
Slow down James Cruise. And
volcanic eruption in Yellowstone, that would change the game, right? So.
And of course, Joe Lewicki has a very lovely answer. If I became so singularly focused that I could no longer share it with those I care about.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a good one.
Nice. Yeah.
Personal thing. And
Chris Thor has a question.
Hi, Christy. Yeah.
Chris Thor has a question for the panel. If anyone, who would take it on after Fenn dies, Creighton or Shiloh?
What do you think, Cynthia? If anyone take it, you mean the responsibility for the state of the search?
Right.
What do you think, Cynthia?
I think Forrest will not appoint anyone to take it on after his death. I think that puts a great burden on them. Forrest understands how some of the horrible side that's happened to him over the last 8 years, and I don't think he would wish that on any other family members. So, and back to the question that you had asked Jason that I didn't get to answer.
Go ahead.
I agree with Jason that there is nothing legal that has to be done. Forrest actually started this thinking it wasn't going to be found for 1,000 years or whatever. So I really don't think that there's anything legal. And regarding the IRS, why would you tell them?
Because
you're not going to be able to hide it.
Yeah. So, Rodney, let's go to the question that I asked Jason and Cynthia, and that is, what is your sense of, if you were to find the treasure, what your legal, not taxable responsibility is? What is there a legal responsibility with that you'd have to take care of? Are you?
I absolutely think that there is.
Yeah.
I think, Fenn mentioned putting 2 hairs inside of that olive jar, along with his memoir. And I think that the only reason to do something like that is to be able to match DNA. Everything in that chest is hundreds and thousands of years old. There's a Archaeological Protection Act, as well as an Antiquities Act. And if you get caught recovering something that is more than 100 years old, you could face huge penalties and even jail time. A chest with a piece of paper in it, there's no way to confirm, that wasn't an archaeological dig. And I think that Fenn took the steps to have his DNA somewhere on file, as well as inside that box or inside the chest. So when it is found, there is a way for you to definitively prove that that's not an archaeological artifact, as well as you being the rightful owner.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Let me come back to you in a second with the other question, but I'm going to go to Jason first. So Jason, let's go to Chris's question. Does the responsibility for managing the search, upon Fenn's passing, does the responsibility for managing the search pass on to one of his heirs, one of his project, Shiloh or Creighton, someone like that?
In my heart, I'm right there with Cynthia. I think that he's not going to appoint anybody. Once he's gone, like, nature's going to take his course. I don't think there's going to be a point of contact for his treasure. I don't think he wants to curse his family with that. That's a huge burden of responsibility that I don't even know if any of them want that.
Mm-hmm. And okay, so let's go, Rodney. Let's go back to you with that question. What is your sense of what anything that Fenn has put in place to pass the responsibility for, quote, managing the search after he's gone?
Well, I think that everything that Forrest has done for this treasure is to provide a decent amount of proof. So when you do find it, there's all this stuff to tie back to. As far as somebody, taking over or that responsibility placed on somebody, it doesn't even have to be a single person. It could be an entity like a law firm, and they don't even have to know where it's at. Essentially, everything involving the chase along with the chest could be in a trust. And, once it's found, the person, it's a blank trust signed by Fenn, owned by this legal firm. And once you go for it and you find it, it's being passed down to, you are now the new trust owner.
So let me ask it in a different way. If you find the treasure, do you feel like you have a responsibility? And Fenn has passed, so we're all talking in the context. I hope he doesn't watch this one. Forrest, I want you to know this is all hypothetical. We imagine that you're going to live forever. But let's say Fenn has passed and you find the treasure. Do you feel like it's your responsibility to involve, let's say, Shiloh or another member of his family in the disposition, the announcement, the disposition, whatever you do with the treasure? Is that how you see it?
I've tried emailing Forrest this question as well. You know, I'm curious if he wants that bracelet to go to somebody, right, a next of kin or whatever. But I think that the finder not only has a moral obligation of alerting the community so people aren't out there, you know, spending money, being in danger, and so on and so forth. But, you know, everybody that says how you're gonna have to announce it for legal reasons as well. Like, you're not gonna avoid the IRS on something like that.
Let me go back. Well, hang on. I don't mean to interrupt you, but let me go back because I'm trying to get some sense of where you are on this. What is your opinion when it comes to the matter of, will Fenn pass the responsibility for, quote, the search, unquote, to one of his family members, in your opinion?
I mean, he could. I don't think it would be a burden on anybody because I don't think he would have to announce. The person wouldn't have to know where it's at. It doesn't change anything. They're just now the person that would be notified in the event of.
Okay.
And we wouldn't even have to know who that person is.
Yeah, I think I feel like I know all of you well enough to believe that we all believe that whoever finds the treasure should at least, whether anonymously or not, announce that their treasure has been found, right? So I think we can all agree upon that. What you do after that is a different question. So I want to put my 2 cents into both of these questions. So here's where we sit, and when I say we, I mean Shelley and Kevin and Jason and I, Jason Eunice, and that is like probably both Cynthia and Jason. I believe that when you recover the treasure, you have a responsibility to announce that it's recovered, and then whatever legal there is no legal responsibility. There is no transfer of title, reporting to a trust, calling some lawyers, unless you choose to do that for your own purposes. But I don't think Fenn put a treasure in a place that when you recover it, and the quote in the poem is "take the chest and go in peace." To me, take the chest and go in peace doesn't mean contacting the trust to inform them that you'd like to have the title transferred. So that's the first thing. I think it's straightforward, simple. You walk away with the chest. The second part of that is I hope, not only for the sake of the search, but for the sake of his family, I hope there is nothing in place that would require any member of his family to be responsible for the state of the search after his passing. I think Fenn's plan, in my opinion, Fenn's plan was to make this as easy as possible on everyone, including his family and including the searcher who finds the treasure. They take the chest, they go in peace, and then after that they decide whatever they want to do, including we plan to pay taxes. We plan to announce its recovery. Whether we plan to maintain our anonymity during that. But I think Fenn's passing effectively removes Fenn and his family, and I think he planned this. I think Fenn's passing removes Fenn and his family away from the search, from the treasure, and anything that would happen after that. And Shelley, you had another question for the panel?
No.
No. Okay. I'm sorry.
I'm good.
Okay. So I'm going to apologize because I really wanted to have Michael with us. I knew he was in a hotel room, and I knew it would be kind of a problem for him to get here. So I'm going to have to I apologize for that because I really wanted him to be here because I know he's got he would have some great advice for us. But I want to keep moving forward with this subject. Oh, we're going to try something different. What's that? Michael? We might have to finish the show with Michael, huh? Instead of going, Michael, can you hear me?
Okay, so I can hear you.
Okay.
And I can see you. I'm in now the lobby of the hotel. Can you tell me whether it's working?
Yeah, you actually look and sound pretty good right now. So before it goes bad again, let's try this. So what I've been trying to get from you all night is your story. So tell everybody your story.
Okay, so it's going to get shorter and shorter, right?
Okay, yeah, that's what.
So all right. So I started looking a year ago, around June, after hearing the news reports about the searcher disappearances. Since then, I've made 4 trips, 20 days at my site overall. I've only ever been to one site. Before leaving Japan, I had everything up to but not including the blaze in my solution. On the first trip, I found what I considered to be the blaze. I have not left my search area since then. And what I use as my determiner as to whether I would continue after each visit, I ask myself the extent to which progress has been made. I have no intention of ever searching in another spot. In order to justify the expense to come, it was only because I had something that I thought fit so well, also in comparison to other solves that I had seen and read about, that I basically use other solves that I've heard as a yardstick to determine whether I have something of interest. So basically, I would continue as long as I can make progress. And when I stop making progress, that's it for me. I won't come again.
All right.
If my wife ever decides to pull the plug on this, then it's pulled. Then I don't come back either.
So you did hear some of the other questions we were asking.
Yeah, I heard quite a bit.
Oh, okay.
I could hear you. I could see you, but I couldn't speak to you.
All right. So, Jason, did you have a question for Michael?
How many of your frequent flyer miles are you willing to give me?
I'm not giving you any because I'm using them now for this trip. This trip is a trip.
No, my real question is, from start to finish, when I was in Korea to come back to the States, I think it was like, sometimes 21 hours, from the time I boarded the plane until I landed. Although it might only, I might take off from Korea and land an hour earlier in the States than what I left. But how long does it take you once you get to the airport there in Tokyo or wherever in Japan until you land here stateside?
Oh, I don't know. I think the flight, each time I come, it's a different way because it depends on whatever's the best deal to come. But I think it's on the order of 20 some hours. But 20 hours is nothing. It's nothing. You're spending a week. What's 20 hours? The whole thing is you look at the whole package. You're spending a certain amount of time. You're spending a certain amount of money. How much time you spend in the plane hardly matters.
Well, yeah, your opinion on that matter is way different from mine because I've had those flights.
Ask me in 20 years.
Yeah,
and they'd be
yeah, and I find them painful, both emotionally and psychologically painful. Okay, so we talked a little bit about Fenn's passing. You mentioned that you were here, but you're not back in the U.S. necessarily for a search trip. It sounded like you're in the U.S. for a different reason this time.
Well, we're visiting my wife's relatives on the West Coast, and we're doing a tour. And originally I said, okay, I'll show you the spot because she has never been and she's interested.
Mm-hmm.
And so then she started looking into the book more seriously. She read it in detail. She heard my solve. She looked at the videos that I made, explaining what was going on. And she said, no, we should spend a week there, which is great, when you have the
kind of support.
Thumbs up from the support. We aren't going to spend a week there. I'm not sure whether it came through when I was saying, each time when you come, if you're going to make progress in one spot, that means the spot contracts as a result. That means you learn something that helps you narrow things down.
Yeah.
Now things are getting pretty narrow. I imagine that my next visit will be it, one way or the other. I'll either finish the line of inquiry to its end successfully or not. And so I don't need much more time anymore. I will come up with my answer one way or the other. And if I don't learn something new from this trip, then that's my last trip.
So I'm not going to ask you where your search area is, but I do like asking the question more for my own purposes than anything else. What is the distance, the physical distance between your clue 1 and your clue 9 as you've reduced it?
Well, I'm not sure about numbering, but let's say distance to blaze. Okay? Then distance to blaze would be On the order of 10 to 15 months total.
Okay. All right. Cynthia, did you have a question for Michael?
Yes, I have several.
Okay.
Real quick. Have you ever met Forrest Fenn when you've been in New Mexico?
I have not, and I hope not to, unless I find the treasure. The reason for this is I don't want to be put into the same sort of awkward situation that Matt was in. I, of course, have things that I would love to tell and to share. So my feeling is it's not in his best interest to respond to anybody who thinks that they are close. And I don't want any clues, and I don't want to appear as if I'm asking for clues. In fact, every time he gives out more information, I feel that somehow the quality of the challenge drops a little bit. And right now, I'm viewing it's the challenge that excites me, and I'm putting up myself against this task. And you know, when teacher turns around and makes it easier for everybody, it's not always very satisfying. So I prefer just the way it is.
All right. Cynthia, let me come back to you with your next question. I want to give Rodney a chance to get one in before we get too late. Rodney, did you have a question for Michael?
Yeah, I got one. So since you travel from a far distance away, I'm assuming that you don't bring any sort of treasure hunting tools with you.
Good question. Yeah. No, I don't. I mean, I won't get into specifics of what I've bought, but I'm used to buying certain things when I've arrived. And I decided after my first trip to bring those certain things back to Japan as souvenirs. And then for each successive trip to the United States after that, I get a little note from TSA whenever I go through, because they were so interested in what I brought the first time that they are now checking up on me fairly regularly.
Nice.
Sounds like thousands of souvenirs.
Yeah. All right, Cynthia, back to you.
They allowed me to keep them.
Right.
There's nothing illegal. But
Cynthia, back to you with you said you had a series of questions.
So my other question, Michael, you just talked about how your wife has gotten more interested in it now. Has she been on all 4 of your boots on the ground searches? And do you allow her to give you your opinion about what she thinks the solves are? I mean, do you listen to her ideas, or you just say, this is where we're going?
Okay. So there is... there's no sense of where we're going, because when she started getting into the details, things were sort of set. So after I explained to her the reasoning of it, she understands that this reasoning leads to one location and one location alone. As to her ideas, every question that she asks sharpens my own thinking. Every time that I'm challenged to sort of explain gives me an opportunity to say things again. And it's just the same thing as in my work, in dealing with, I as a researcher, as an academic, as a supervisor of graduate students. I mean, for them and for me, every time you explain what you're thinking, gives you an opportunity to sharpen it.
Yeah.
So I really welcome the input and the questions, yes.
Yeah, that's that concept of being asked the question, whatever the question is, and giving someone the opportunity to answer. Like you say, it always improves, and it's part of the process of developing a solution is having it interrogated, right? Having it questioned so that you can, so it forces you. I know.
You constantly have to reevaluate yourself.
Yeah.
If you've got something that's serious enough to take you from a far distance and which you're going to pay for, in terms of the expenses and everything,
right,
you should be challenging it. You should be putting your ideas up against others and somehow coming up with an internal measure of quality or consistency. This is not to say that you think that your solution is right and everybody else's is wrong.
Right.
But you put little parts of it up to the test against others, constantly reevaluate.
So what are the chances that you're going to get to Albuquerque on this trip?
The chances are quite good.
Okay.
I'm going to be in Albuquerque in the morning of the 13th on my way through to northern New Mexico.
All right. Well, stop by. We'll have some coffee.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Shelley, do you have some questions from the room?
I do. Let me pull those up just a second.
Okay.
All right. Mary Green wants to know from Michael, do you want to share your search state?
New Mexico.
Okay, good.
Done.
One. I didn't want to do that, but I guess you don't mind if you do. More questions?
I don't mind if I do. I
right.
love New Mexico. Come search in New Mexico.
Jeep Girl Jody wants to know from Michael, how do you do your research from Japan?
Okay. This is a good question because I think it all comes back in people's thinkings to the Jenny Kyle question about the little girl in India. So I'm the somewhat older guy in Japan.
I'm trying to get that vision out of my head.
So this is an important clue, but not, I think, what people think it is. People think of it as a clue as to what sort of materials it is. I think this is an important clue about what sort of person Forrest Fenn is and how to evaluate everything he says. He answered the question quite accurately, and he is quite happy to let other people misinterpret this. The question is, little girl in India with a map. Map is paper map. It doesn't mean Google Map. It doesn't mean other internet tools. And so map of the Rocky Mountains forces a scale, a fixed scale on that piece of paper. This means if there's a town involved or a mountain or a river or a lake that you might be able to see, that's it. That's as far as it's going to go. So in that, Forrest Fenn has told us that after 2 clues, the scale on the map of the Rocky Mountains should be those things would not appear on such a map. They could very well appear on Google Earth. They could very well appear in people's photos in their blogs. Okay, they could very well appear in perhaps park information. They could very well appear in many, many sources online. I have the same advantages using the internet, almost, as anybody living in the US, because very few people are actually living like Bill Gorman on his search spot. Okay, the rest of us are all little girls in India, but we have more resources than just a map. Okay.
I'm not sure I can think of myself as a little girl in India, but I get your point.
Yeah, well, okay, or old guys.
Old guy in Albuquerque.
Yeah.
Old fart in Albuquerque. Rodney, did you have another question for Michael before I start making a transition out here?
Yeah, I'm curious as to if this is your first treasure hunt.
Okay, this is not my first treasure hunt. I first heard of treasure hunts when I was a teenager about the masquerade hunt. Of course, being in Canada at the time, I had no chance to go, but it was fun, and I went through the book. When I was living in Australia in the 90s,
man,
yes, that was great. As far as locations and you know, exploring the outback goes, that was a lot of fun. But there was there are 2 very educational hunts that I was part of. One of them I won, the other one I failed at miserably. The one that I won, I was a friend of mine who does book reports for a paper gave me this sort of like children's puzzle book style thing with a little coin as a prize and a painting that goes with it. Not a big prize, but the person who put together the treasure hunt underestimated the difficulty. It took only 9 hours to do it, and basically all of you, every last one of you, everyone you can think of who's into puzzles would have solved this in a matter of a day or 2, at least, you know, at most. You know, it could have been 6 hours, 10 hours, whatever. So the other one was a failed hunt, meaning nobody collected the prize after a certain time limit, and it was originated in New Zealand, and the prize there was pretty substantial. It was like about $75,000 or so, some jewelry or whatever, and it went unclaimed because the designer of the treasure hunt had somehow thought that the answer was a 3D reconstruction of something, and the only thing is, he was the only one who thought that this was a 3D reconstruction. Nobody else thought that when the...
Sounds like the lost golden horse.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically. So the point that I want to make about this is that it is hard to develop an intricate, complex treasure hunt and get the balance right. So there is important information for everybody here, the fact that the treasure hunt has gone 8 years. It either means that the balance has gone too far the other way and it's unsolvable, or it is exquisitely balanced if it's still solvable. But it is not going to be solvable in a simple, trivial way.
Hmm.
So think about that. Simple interpretations, simple, readings of the clues are not likely to work. There've been too many people on it for 8 years. It's showing that the balance, if anything, is the other way.
Well,
People should be concerned about feasibility.
I agree with that.
we'll be able to extend this conversation, Michael, because you're next on the list for the It's All About You. Yeah. So it's not going to be this week, but next week we'll have to make some time so that we can extend this conversation into your It's All About You interview. Okay.
If it's any time this month, I'll be traveling. So
Oh, okay.
let's verify.
Well,
let's verify the Wi-Fi connection.
We'll do it, and make sure if you do come through Albuquerque, remind me. I still have the mirror, the mirror that Jason made that you won in one of our first games. Shelley, why don't you give me that question that came with the super chat so that we can get that out of the way? Yeah, thank you.
All right. So Robert Walker wants to know, have any of the panelists or those in the chat found any significant hints to solve just where warm waters halt? Or are you using a combination of other clues, such as home of brown, etc., to identify a likely where warm waters halt?
Okay, so let me see if I can reduce that for each of us. Any partner, those in the chat, found any significant hints? And I'm assuming he's talking about the book. So let me qualify that for him. So Jason, is there any hint of the few hints that are in the book? Are there any that helped you with the location of where your warm waters halt?
I will say no.
Okay.
Just keep it simple.
Yeah, and that's good enough. Cynthia, hints in the book that helped you with your warm waters halt?
Well, yeah, I went every place that was mentioned, the Madison River, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry, Kobe, you hate those words.
Blah, blah, blah.
Anyway, I mean, for any of us who have been out multiple times and we change our search areas, yeah, I mean, usually you try to come up with something from the book that's going to tell you where to go. The only problem is none of us have gotten it right.
Yeah. Michael, anything in the book that's a hint for your warm waters halt?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
But I should say, it didn't help me find it. It helped me afterwards, after the fact, after I had my idea for it, I could find interesting confirmation.
Hints that said Rodney Greenway. Hints in the book that led you to your warm waters halt.
Not exactly to it, but hints surrounding my where warm waters halt.
That got you then. So I will tell you, to answer that question on our behalf, I will tell you that the multiple readings of the chapter entitled Flywater sent us directly back in 2013 to what we still to this day believe are warm waters halt. And most of you who are out there in the chat room and watching this probably know what it is. Okay, so let's wrap it up. Michael, I didn't ask you, but we didn't get to ask this question. Do you have a website or a blog that you'd like to promote before we say our good nights?
Not at all.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us, and thank you for going through the trouble of making communications.
Thank you for your patience. This was difficult.
We're glad that we got it done. We got the questions in that we wanted to, and I was glad that you went through the trouble of moving so that we could get that link. Okay, Cynthia, say your good nights and tell us where we can find you online.
You can find me online at chasingfennstreasure.com.
Okay, Rodney?
Rodney Greenway. You can email me at fenntreasurethoughts@gmail.com or check out my YouTube channel, Rodney Greenway. And thanks for having me on the show tonight.
We're glad to have you. I was warned in advance that you might be a very difficult panel member to moderate, but you were practically an angel from what I was.
Thanks,
Just.
I know it was.
Yeah. Jason.
Fenn Treasure Hunter on YouTube.
Yeah, and we like your work. We really do.
Thank you.
Shelley Carney.
Yes, thank you. Thanks to everybody for all the lovely compliments in the chat tonight. I enjoyed reading it, and I hope that you'll show up tomorrow on my channel, The Softer Side, at 7 o'clock. Toby and I will be talking about what makes a hero, and that's on thesofterside.me. It's 7 o'clock tomorrow night.
Thank you. So for those of you that are looking forward to your Thursday, Shally and I will be on at 1 p.m. With the Thrill of the Chase book club. We're still on the chapter entitled My War for Me, and I think we're on the 4th section of that. It's taken multiple episodes to get through. Tomorrow we'll be on 4 of 7. So we hope that you'll join us for that. If you're as Shally would tell you at this point, please like this video by giving it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, family, business associates, and social networks. And if you're not already a subscriber, remember that you have to be a subscriber in order to win some of our prizes. In tomorrow's show, we're giving away another copy of Aunt Lucy's cookbook, New Mexican Cookbook. And it's literally, if you like New Mexican food, this is the cookbook to have in your pantry. We'll give away one of those. Okay, so before I sign off, first of all, I want to thank all the panel members for joining us tonight. Rodney, thanks very much for joining us on such short notice. We really appreciate it. And we will have you back for other panel sessions, I can assure you. Shally Carney, of course, we'll see you tomorrow. Jason and Cynthia, thanks for, again, joining us tonight. Michael, thank you for all the trouble.
Thank you.
You were a great and very patient guest, and I'm sure you and I will spend some time when we do your It's All About You interview. Okay,
I'm looking forward to it.
So I'd also like to say thank you to the members in our chat room for keeping it such an active chat. I hope you enjoy it now that the wait time, or whatever it's called, been reduced to 20 seconds, because it looked pretty darn active in there. Thankfully, we have Shally looking out for you. And of course, I'd like to say thank you to our moderators who are always here to keep the room safe and active and happy. So here we go. Here's San Isidro. This is a laser cut of one of my daughter's paintings, retablo paintings. San Isidro is the patron saint of farmers. And here's your trivia question. In 2015, my daughter posted a video of her doing a muerto image of a character that's notable in Mexican folklore. What was the name of that character? Put it in the comment box below. First time winners only, and you must be a subscriber in order to win. Okay? Everybody, thanks for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. We'll see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. on Forrest Fenn Book Club.